Oh god, it's going away. Oh god, it's getting quieter. Oh god, I'm fading. Oh god, I'm dying. Hello everybody. Welcome to the stream. I can see that the title of the stream has inspired a lot of speculation and confusion in the chat. It says, man of my word, it's because the last stream that I did, I said I promised the next stream will be more reviews. So I'm doing more reviews. I'm sorry if anybody got their hopes up. People are like, what did he promise? Is this going to be something like crazy? No, I'm going to do a second stream nearly identical to the last stream. Finally, he's playing Glumpy. I can't believe you rated Risk a 1. Risk? You mean Avianos? I didn't even give numerical ratings to those. Well, whatever. Sorry to disappoint if anybody was getting their hopes up. Somebody was like, you laugh, you lose. I still have, you know, had the thought of doing a you laugh, you lose at some point in my head. You laugh, you lose, but I actually try not to laugh. Rather than, like, most you laugh, you lose videos where it's like somebody farts in the video and they're like, and I'm like, okay, you're clearly not trying. Like, what if somebody, the concept in my brain is like, what if you laugh, you lose, but you're actually trying to play the fucking game rather than just watching funny videos, I guess. I feel like YLYL has become just, I watch funny videos on my stream. And I know some people do, like, you laugh, you donate to charity, or you laugh, you eat a gross jelly bean, or whatever, but I still don't think, I don't watch a lot of you laugh, you lose, but sometimes it's like Bella will be watching one and I'll like look over her shoulder and I'll be like, they're not trying, you know? Yeah, it's for most people, it's just you laugh. So first off, though, I want to acknowledge this beautiful art from Purplemonium. This looks kind of Anton Blasty a little bit, at least Bella does. It's very, very cool. I don't know why I have a gun. I don't have a gun in real life. I have the Zapper, but I appreciate it. I like the big, meaty, fleshy eyebrows I was given. Thank you very much, Purplemonium. It's very cool. Mallow. Mallow and Shu look very scrungly, just like they do in real life. I'm looking at them right now. Shu's actually awake. He's looking at me. He's on his little perch just staring. He loves to have a look. So I'm just going to hop right back into it. We're going to do more reviews today. I would like to get caught up on this series as a whole. And so I'm going to take the necessary steps to do that. I know, it's crazy, right? He wants to finish a series, so he's actually streaming. He's like doing it. Crazy to think about that we've got to this point. So I'm going to put on the music. We're going to just be listening to some, I'm honestly not putting a huge amount of thought into the music in the background. We're just going to listen to some stuff. Sonic Adventure OST, greatest hits, followed by whatever the hell is next in the playlist. Ooh, maybe we'll get some Echo the Dolphin music in there. Mother 3, I think that would be good. I don't know exactly what we'll cover today, but surely, at least, I mean, at the very least, hopefully we'll be able to get this chunk done. Some FromSoft stuff. I'd be happy if we could also get this all tidied up and tucked away. These are gonna take a while because there's just a lot to talk about here. There's some very meaty games. You know, up here we got like Daydream and Davy and shit, and that's gonna be, you know, I'll talk about Daydream and Davy for like 2 minutes, whereas Lisa the Painful, I feel like I can talk about for like an hour. So it probably won't be as extreme in either direction there, but hold on, I need to take a paper towel and cram it into my wrist brace, because it's like, I just washed my wrist brace, and it like didn't dry out perfectly, so like my wrist is very like wet. It's very, like it wasn't wet coming out, but it's just kind of got that, like, dampness to it. So I'm just cramming a paper towel in there. Okay. Lisa the Slopful. Lisa the Midful. Have you ranked Luigi and Spaghetti? Yes. What did Luigi and Spaghetti get? It got a 5. And a lot of that is, like, humorous enjoyment. I think 5 is also... Is that not the same score that I also gave, like, original Super Mario Bros? Yeah. Which is a very different kind of enjoyment. The numbers should never be taken, like, totally out of context. Although at the end of all this, when I get caught up, you know I'm gonna make a duplicate of the spreadsheet and sort it by this column. Just so that we can, like, see... I just think it'll be satisfying to see, like, a full gradient of games from, like, best to worst. And, like, maybe that can, maybe I can adjust some rankings based on that. I don't know, that might be... It's... At a certain point, you fall into a trap of, like, re-reviewing stuff over and over again, so... let's get into it. Daydreamin' Davy. This was a dog water NES game. Kind of a cute premise, but just totally mishandled. This game was published by HAL, but it was developed by a different company. I think they're called, like, Sunrise. It's not Sunsoft. Something else. I forget their names. It's in the video. But playing this in the Zapper streams was a huge letdown because not only does it barely utilize the Zapper, it's like optional Zapper usage and genuinely like 10 seconds of gameplay throughout the entire game are dedicated to Zapper. And even then you can just use a controller. So it's really the most minimal usage of the Zapper possible. I know that's not like the criteria we're grading it on, but that was a little disappointing to me as a Zapper enjoyer. But overall, the game is just terrible. It's like, oh, it's the little kid Davy, and he has like extreme narcolepsy, and whenever he experiences a mild inconvenience in his day-to-day life at school, he goes into a fugue state where he can't distinguish reality from fiction, and goes on whimsical adventures in Arthurian myth and Greek mythology and the American Wild West. And I tell you what, like, on paper that sounds like a cute concept, but it was handled so poorly. All the characters are so, like, hateable, including the main character. He's just a little shit. The gameplay is just bad. It feels unfinished. The combat, particularly in those medieval sections, it's just like the way the enemies move around. I'm just like, it needed more time in the oven. Like, why did they release this? Just like looking at the way shit moves in those sections blows my mind. Sometimes you look at NES games and you're like, yeah, you know, this was considered half decent for a home console game at the time, when most people's standards were Atari 2600 centric, you know, or NES centric. But Daydreamin' Davy, I'm like, man, I've played a bunch of NES games, and even then, like, this is so bad, even for an NES game. So it was a little funny, kind of sitting there and being like, haha, the child is crazy, basically. But even then, it just kind of felt like, at a certain point, like, wow, this kid, like, seriously really has a problem, and, like, he should go to therapy or something. Like, it ended up not even feeling very funny. The usage of the Zapper, the brief usage of the Zapper, is also terrible. As far as I could tell, it's like you get into these little, like, Western showdowns where the guy goes, draw. And as far as I could tell, if you shoot the gun after he says draw, you just lose. You have to disrespect the draw. Like, I found a 100% success rate just shooting before he said draw. Which is shocking, that even such a just basic aspect of it was seemingly fucked up. I don't know if that's because of top loader or what. I don't think it was, though, because I was playing that on my actual NES. Just shocking. Shockingly bad for an NES game. Absolutely not recommend. Oh, I'm on the wrong account here. Give me one moment. I can't type in the spreadsheet. Oops. I was on a different account. I have to use the account that is linked to like the Grayfruit Patreon for this, just because that's where I happen to create this spreadsheet rather than my main like Grayfruit account. Let's give it like a 1.5. It was vaguely funny, but even then it like barely has any value as entertainment, and I'm really sorry if any of the devs are listening now, but it was just god awful. Okay, Hit Marmot. This was one that I played on my EverDrive. I don't know if this was ever on a cartridge of its own. It might have been part of a like one of those compilations, you know, like an Action 52 type of thing. Who knows? There's not a ton of information on this game online. I just kind of thought it looked funny. It's basically just whack-a-mole with the zapper. It's functional. It's very boring. I don't think there's music even. There was a questionable opening cutscene where it kind of looked like a dude like had his dick out or something, but I kind of think that was just bad graphics. Messing with our brains and making us imagine penile where there was none. There's almost no content. I mean, this would barely pass for a mini game in like a real video game, so I don't know. I give it also a 1.5. Hit Marmot and Daydream and Davy, both the same ranking, even though they're pretty different. Yeah, there's like a weird pink square. I don't know what was up with that. Man, this song's such a banger. For some reason, do you guys, this is kind of like, you know, cringy, but do you ever imagine like a trailer for a video game in your head? Even though like the game is already out and like probably had trailers, I imagine like a Sonic Adventure, maybe even like a Sonic Adventure remake trailer, like using this song for some reason, and it's like, and you've got like all the like shots and like blocking like in your head. I'm sure plenty of you can relate. Anyway, Fruit Shinobi. This one was this is actually a modern Zapper game that was made, I think, just as a programming exercise, basically by some homebrewer. It's Fruit Ninja with the Zapper. It's very glitchy and rudimentary. It's certainly not a polished experience whatsoever, and I don't think it was meant to be. I think it might have even been like a game jam or something. Fellas, is it gay to imagine? I'm embarrassed to admit, like, how much I vibed with Sonic Adventure, honestly. You know, I'm not embarrassed. It's fine to like a game, but, it was a cool time despite being a deeply flawed experience. But that's a different review. Fruit Shinobi, not a lot to it, and I don't fault the game for it or anything. I'll give it like, oh my god, I keep typing the numbers in this column. No, wouldn't recommend. Just play Fruit Ninja. Like, it's basically just an interesting like little like tech demo homebrew thing. I don't think it was made with the idea of being like well received in mind. So I'm like always so worried when it's like, oh, this is like a little project that was made by like one guy. I don't want to be rude about it, but I don't think they would take offense to this ranking. Undercover Shot. This is a modern NES game, Zapper game, that I actually kind of really liked. It's very simple. This would be like, I was saying while we were streaming it, it would be a fun, like, hipster party game where it's like, ooh, we've got the CRT and we've got this home-brewed NES game that's compatible with the Zapper. That's like, it's basically a NES version of the game Spy Party, I think is what it's called. I don't know if it took direct inspiration from that or what, but there's basically just 4 NPCs walking around on the screen, but one of them is controlled by somebody holding the game controller, and the other person has to identify who the real person is and shoot them with the gun. And that's it. That's all there is to it. It's very, very simple. I mean, you're probably going to get like maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes of playtime out of this, but Bella and I had a rip-roaring time playing it. honestly. I was surprised at how enjoyable it was. Maybe like, I don't know, it's like, it's simple fun. It's one of those games where there's not a lot going on, I think, necessarily under the hood. Although I think the devs said that the different NPCs actually had different movement patterns and like tendencies, which was kind of a cool detail. I feel like I subconsciously like noticed it because I like said out loud, I was like, oh, I'm like imagining that these characters have different behaviors and attributes, and the dev was like, actually, that's true. So it was a fun time. I don't know under what situation you would ever play this, but let's say yes, at your hipster ass gamer party, it would go absolutely sloppy. Hold on, I gotta blow my nose real quick. Excuse me. Okay. Slaughter. This was another little homebrew NES thing. Another kind of like Fruit Shinobi, where it's like just a little homebrew project, like tech demo or whatever. I don't think this is necessarily meant to be judged on its own merits as like a real video game, but it is a 3D first-person shooter on the NES. And if you haven't seen footage of this game, go look it up, go look at my VOD or whatever, because it is pretty mind-blowing to look at, even though obviously it's on the NES, so it doesn't look nearly, it doesn't have, you know, the 3D capabilities of, say, even the SNES or the N64 or anything. But it's kind of nuts what they managed to do on the NES. I'm not a programmer in any capacity, so I can't even really say anything to the tune of like how hard it is to do that on the NES, but I can't imagine it was easy to get it to look that good. So it's definitely visually impressive, but honestly, go just like look at a video of it. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Playing it as a game, it's like, my enjoyment was mostly me going, whoa, and then the actual gameplay is obviously not great. It's tank controls, first-person shooter, which I can handle tank controls, but the visuals are quite like muddy and difficult to wrap your head around at times, so I kind of just appreciate it for what it is rather than actually enjoying playing it. Okay, we're finally here, folks. It's Hawks 2, Tom Clancy's Hawks 2. This is the only PS3 game on this entire list, emulated or not. But it was not. It was on a real PS3. And, oh, hell yeah, this song goes sloppy raw. So, this is a military slop game of the highest degree, which is really, like, the opposite of my vibe. Like, I just don't care about this type of game. I really just played it because it fit the format of the stream of doing Hawk Tuah jokes. Fun fact, oh god, I don't remember what the exact, like, anime was, but I was inspired to do the Hawks 2 stream by looking up a voice actor that was in some anime that Bella and I were watching, and I noticed that one of their other voice credits was in Hawks 2. And I was like, holy shit, there's a game called Hawks 2. I totally forgot about that. And then I like looked into it and I was like, oh my god, it's like abandonware. Like, you can barely even play it. It's barely even possible to play this game at all these days because of like the really aggressive DRM and the fact that it got delisted from a bunch of stores. So I was like, this is such a perfect joke to do like the stupid like Hawk Tuah stream, and then I kind of like built on the idea from there. But I was reminded that Hawks 2 existed from, like, IMDb, basically. Or what's the website that tracks... there's a website that always pops up when you look up anime voice actors. I don't remember what site it was. The music overbearing? Should I maybe make it a little quieter? Or is it just that it's, like, action-packed music? I could believe it. Let's turn it down a little bit. I got like 4 different answers in chat about the website. So who knows? I turned it down a little bit. It should be good. So anyway, Hawks 2, it's functional. I didn't really, like, even putting aside, like, jingoism and it being slop, I mean, slight side note, it's really genuinely fascinating how involved the actual military-industrial complex is with funding games like this. It's actually, like, terrifying. They're just propaganda, like, they're actual propaganda. So that's a really icky aspect of it. But even putting that aside, it wasn't very fun. At the beginning, it was like, oh, some of the, like, aerial combat, it was like, okay, I can, like, slightly vibe with this. It's not really my type of game, but I can slightly vibe with it. But, I don't know, the controls of the planes just did... it just felt weird, and I know it's, like, flying, you know, it's probably not very accurate, like, to how it is flying a plane in real life. It's probably they video gamified it a lot, I'm sure, to make it, you know, a little more fun, but even then, I just didn't really find it too enjoyable. And a lot of it, there were some really boring parts. Like, a lot of it was just kind of like, yay, I'm flying a plane. The part where, like, I'm just going from place to place, you know, a lot of that, I guess, was the tutorial. But the part where I had to, like, I was in, like, some sort of helicopter, and I was shooting down at the ground, trying to protect a convoy that was traveling on the ground. That shit was mind-numbingly boring. That was when I stopped playing the game. And, I don't know, I just feel like this is, like, the kind of game that's meant to just, like, numb your brain rather than energize it, you know, in the words of Yahtzee Croshaw. So, really wasn't a fan. Obviously, it's hilarious that it's called a Hawk 2-op, but I don't know. Who the fuck even is Tom Clancy? He was a fiction writer, I believe. He's dead now. But he just wrote a bunch of, military slop novels, right? Is that a correct summary? So no, I would not recommend, especially because it's nearly impossible to play these days. The only way I was able to play it was on an actual PS3 and specifically disconnecting the PS3 from the internet so that Ubisoft's servers couldn't go like, hey, citizen, turn off that Hawk 2-a. Yeah, I don't think Tom Clancy is actually involved with the creation of these games. I think he just writes the story. I could be wrong. They're adaptations of the books. It could be. It could be. He wrote Red October? Is that really true? Hunt for Red October. He wrote that? Hunt for Red October. No, not film. It is! Wow, okay, that must be his, like, best-known work. Thomas Leo Clancy Jr. was an American novelist. Huh. And that was his first book, I believe, is what Wikipedia says. Huh. Anyway, there are many video games that, use his name, at least in the title or in the promotional material. Let's give Hawks 2, like, you know what? Give it a 2. Give it a 2. It really wasn't that enjoyable. Even, like, I don't know. It's got the ickiness. It's not fun. It's boring. Like, what's there to like about it? There were some slight moments of excitement here and there during some of the aerial combat. But even then, the second the aerial combat got more than brain dead easy, like it got just the slightest shred of difficulty, it instantly became like super annoying. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. I know this is a highly beloved game. I think a lot of people say maybe this is even like one of the better Tony Hawk games. I'm not big on skating games. They're just not my thing. You shouldn't be coming to me for judgments on a skating game. I'll play like Jet Set Radio and shit in the future. That's like the kind of, I think those are the kind of similar games, but more video gamey that I would enjoy more. But skating games, it's just, I don't know anything about it, and I feel like you'd need to know a ton about it going into it. Maybe I'm just stupid, like maybe there's plenty of people who just picked up Tony Hawk while knowing nothing about skateboarding and were just like, yeah, all this feels perfectly natural to me and I understand everything that's happening. But it just, I just don't have any fucking clue what's happening. Like, I understand what grinding is, and I know what an ollie is, and I understand that you go up the ramp and then you turn around and you come back down the ramp, and that's like it. And they spit so much terminology at you, and so much like weird skating jargon, and just sort of expect you to understand it all. And the controls are always, I find, like super obtuse and weird, and I'm like trying all sorts of different shit and just nothing works. I don't know. Yeah, it might be very much a read the manual kind of game. So I didn't really enjoy it very much. It's got fun music. That's about all I could say for it. I wasn't really a big fan. Maybe give it like a 3.5. I don't know. Going up the ramp and coming back down is basically fun. It was inoffensive, but it's just not my type of game. Twin Hawk, this was a dog water shooter. I have almost nothing to say about this one. It's like that 1945-ass kind of shooter where it's just like planes and tanks and like realistic-ish military craft, and I just think that stuff's so boring in a bullet hell kind of shooter like this. And it had fast bullets in small quantities rather than many numerous bullets slowly. So there you go. That's all I need to say about it. At this point, you guys know. And the music and the sound effects were terrible too. There was really, I think, gosh, I don't think I liked anything about this game, actually. The music and sound effects were super grating and awful. The graphics, I guess, were passable. The gameplay was terrible. The theming was extremely boring. 1 out of 10. Fuck you, Twin Hawk. I love this. So many... Oh, man, what a great soundtrack. I always think about them remaking this game, and like, they better not touch the soundtrack, man. Or if they do, they better do a damn good job preserving the weird vibe of the original game. It's just, it's so weird and cool. Okay, Wolfenstein 3D, this one I barely played any of. I mean, the other ones I didn't really give a super fair shot to. But Wolfenstein 3D, it's certainly of its time. I played the PC port of it that's on Steam, which has this bizarre thing where it's tank controls, but your mouse also influences the way that you're looking in the game. So it's kind of like a hybrid mouse controls and tank controls. I'm sure that maybe there's an option that you can change to like change that, but that was a little weird. It's just super rudimentary, unfun Doom with Nazis instead of monsters. Not a lot to love about it, frankly, besides its historical importance. You know, it was a crucial step. It's like when you look at that famous, like, Darwinian evolution chart that shows, you know, on one side some kind of, like, ape creature and then a human on the other. It's like Wolfenstein 3D is one of those awkward middle versions of the primate, you know, that's kind of in a transitory period. It was like the tech behind it, I'm sure, was astounding at the time. This was, you know, John Carmack beginning to revolutionize the way that we look at 3D games, basically, because there was 3D stuff before this, but he kind of developed this really incredible new way of rendering stuff in 3D, or at least fake 3D at the time, that I'm sure blew a lot of minds at the time, but it's kind of just like a shitty, flat maze with like a ton of copy-pasted environments and enemies. Maybe it gets more interesting as the game goes on. I'm sure there's bosses and stuff. I know you kill... Don't you fight like Mecha Hitler at the end or something like that? I think there's a Hitler boss. But beyond its historical importance in gaming, it's just not... I didn't find it very fun at all. We're getting the Hawks 2 stream. We're getting all these low scores. Gosh, maybe like a 2.5. It's like, yeah, you can walk around and shoot the enemies, and it works. But hold on, I just hit the Windows key. But like, it's functional, but it's just not fun. I'm gonna say no on this one. Sorry, Wolfenstein fans. It's funny because I said it during the stream, but I genuinely did get a bunch of requests to play Wolfenstein 3D after I played a lot of Doom, and I was always kind of like, oh, like, yeah, maybe, but then after having played it just for a bit, literally for a bit, but also for a bit in the sense of a short amount of time, I don't want to play any more of that shit, man. It's just not terribly fun. Fun power creep is such a real thing, and in the modern day, going back to Wolfenstein 3D, it's like, I might as well play the game where you have a big hoop and you toss it, you bang it along with the stick. What do they call that? Hoopy stick? What's the game that, like, Victorian children used to play? I think that would be more fun than Wolfenstein 3D. Anyway, Windjammers. This is a tremendously fun arcade game. It's fun Bushido Ball. Bushido Ball if it was Peem. Now, there's also a sequel, and I kind of think the sequel honestly eradicates any reason to play the original. At a certain point, it's got all the sequel's got all the features of the original and more. The only reason to go back to the original is just to look at it as a, you know, again, as a historical artifact. But Windjammers 2 is basically just the improved version of it. So I'm going to go ahead and just say no here, yes here. Windjammers 2, incredibly fun party game. It's just you're throwing, it's kind of like Ultimate Frisbee, not really. It's like tennis. I actually struggle to think of a super comparable game, but it's kind of like volleyball or tennis, where you're in a court and the court is split in two, and it's 1v1, and you're just trying to throw a disc and get it to hit the other side. You're basically, I guess, it is kind of like tennis, because I was thinking, like, specifically, are there any sports where you're trying to hit the wall behind your opponent? That's not necessarily true, but, like, that's kind of how tennis works. And also in Windjammers, even if they just fail to catch the disc, it still counts as points, just less points. But it's a very fun, very fast-paced, arcadey versus game. It's a good time. I found that with Windjammers 2, I frequently struggled with the controls. I think this is a game where just loading up, like, practice mode and just fiddling around for, like, 5 minutes would make you so much more accustomed to the game. Whereas all the times previously that I've played it where I'm just, like, thrust into multiplayer with someone, which is actually a few times in my life, I usually am kind of like, oh god, like, I just don't remember what the buttons do. It's hard for me to, like, really get to grips with the controls. Maybe even rebinding stuff to, like, the triggers and stuff. I find that a lot of times that helps. Maybe this is just me, but a lot of times when it's like I'm playing a game that's like a fast-paced action game, and all 4 of the face buttons are like all your crucial actions, I usually forget what they do a lot of the time. And I find that it helps a lot to bind stuff to the triggers and the bumpers. Maybe that's just me, like, it just helps me remember the controls. They, like, stand out in my mind more. Particularly in video games, this is just something that I've been conditioned to. I always bind dash to the trigger button. I guess in Celeste I don't do that, but in Hollow Knight it's on the trigger. In Cuphead I bind it to the trigger, even though that's not the default. In Windjammers I probably should have done the same thing too. So, sorry, I got distracted because Joopy got fucking a message held by saying, if Oriel gets below a 6, I will kill him with my fuck you gay boy hammer. You can't say that shit. You're gonna go to jail. You're gonna get auto-modded. Get out of here. Sorry, I had to cough. So, Windjammers 1, fun game. Definitely, genuinely a really fun game. I'll give it like an 8, and 2 like an 8.5. They're fun. They got a lot of charm in their visual presentation. They got Karnov in Windjammers 2, as well as probably some other iconic Data East characters that nobody gives a shit about. Literally 1984. Literally. Okay, Oriole Wings of Hope. Why would I give this below a 6? Why would I do that? I liked it. I literally liked the game. This is a fun indie platformer. I just finished this the other day. That is kind of in the... It's Sonic adjacent, I would say. It's in kind of the speedy subgenre. I don't really know how else to put it. It's funny, they updated this game the other day so that there's a blue hedgehog in the overworld in the first area, which I thought was kind of cute. Very fun game. I didn't necessarily think it was like perfect, but like the gameplay was very refined and very fun. Super replayable. I've actually since I beat this game on stream, I've actually booted it up a couple more times just to try to like go for better times on some of the earlier levels, just because it's fun. And especially the way that they ramp up the difficulty in the late game, I was like, damn, I'm really good at this game now, surely. So I can probably go back to the early levels and just like blitz through them, which was more or less true. I don't think I'm amazing at the game or anything, but they make you get a certain amount good at a certain point, which I enjoyed. I liked the challenge. I liked all the mechanics. I loved the sound design. The music was great. My one biggest criticism of this game, I think, would be I really didn't care for the dialogue. And like the characters were well designed. They looked cool. The sprites, the little talk sprites that they had were great, but I genuinely think they should have talked about 10% as much as they did in the final game. I don't mean to be rude, because obviously, again, with like indie games, it is never my intention to be rude, but just in the spirit of, you know, actually reviewing something to my own tastes, I just felt like they just kept yapping, and I was just like I was reading early on, and I was just kind of like, man, a lot of this just feels like fluff text, like, why am I reading this? And then at a certain point I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna stop reading it, and just started mashing through the dialogue. So I'm sorry if that was disrespectful or rude. It just I didn't vibe with that part of the game. Thankfully you can kind of just ignore it if it's not your thing. But all the gameplay, like the actual meat and potatoes of the game, was really amazing, really fun. I loved how, you know, some platformers will do this thing where they, you know, thinking about like Celeste, thinking about Pizza Tower even maybe, they'll introduce mechanics in a certain like level, and then they'll just like move on from those mechanics and just ditch them and move on to a new thing in the next level. Whereas Oriole, I kind of liked how it was like they'll add something and then that's just a permanent fixture for the rest of the game, and by the end of the game you're dealing with like 10 different like unique level gimmicks all at once, which never got overwhelming and was just kind of fun and cool. It made me feel like a badass playing it. So yeah, really fun, satisfying platformer. I fear that this might be another one like Penny's Big Breakaway and Moselina and stuff. Like, okay, I don't like it as much as Moselina, but I fear that this game will not get the credit that it deserves as a really excellent platformer, and that makes me sad because it was really, really fun. Let's give it like an 8, 8.5. I'll give it 8.5. Up and down and all around. Why is this one not auto-filling the color? Very, very fun game. Okay, now we can move on. We can finally, let's do King's Field. And then we can move on to Dark Souls. Also, yeah, I only gave it that ranking to avoid getting crushed by the fuck you gay boy hammer, or whatever the hell Joopy said. Numerous memorable quotes from this song, including Up and Down and All Around and Duchess. Let's see, hold on. And right, it's like, I always thought that sounded like Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. Hold on, can we get to a part where they say Duchess? Duchess, okay, they say Duchess there. What is that if not the word Duchess? Let's hear it again. I'll crank it up for you. Duchess, like a female duke? Like, what? What were they cooking with that one? Why does it say Duchess? Why does it say that? It does not say touch this. If it said touch this, it would say touch this. It says Duchess. Or is this like some fucking I'm a shapeshifter bullshit? Where it was like a Japanese person being like, yeah, I know what English sounds like. I always heard that as cashews. Maybe. Anyway, touch grass. It says touch grass. Something's biting! What a banger. Whenever this song comes on, I am contractually obligated in my soul to go, something's biting! Anyway, Kingsfield. Now, part of the reason I've been putting off the Dark Souls, like the FromSoft games reviews for so long, is because I truly don't know what to say about Kingsfield. I think it would be fair to say that I did not give these games necessarily the time to fully analyze them. Like, I didn't give them... I want to say I didn't give them a fair shake, but I really genuinely, going into these games, like when I booted up Kingsfield 1, I was ready, I was prepared for the idea of playing all the way through it if I liked it. I just didn't really care for it. Now, Kingsfield, for one thing, there's this whole thing with the names. Kingsfield 1, the true first one, is actually a Japanese exclusive that I played a fan translation of. So I listed the names here as Kingsfield 1, 2, 3, and 4, but really it's Kingsfield Japanese, then Kingsfield 2, then Kingsfield the Ancient City is what this one's called. In fact, I just realized, you guys can't see it, I misspelled ancient as innocent here. Let me just fix that. Okay. Interesting spelling error. It didn't red underline it. Maybe innocent is a word? Or maybe this... I don't think Google Docs has the red underline thing. But... So just consider that, keep that in mind when I'm talking about these games in case it's... I know it's a little confusing, but I kind of feel like listing them like this is just less confusing. The first 3 games are very similar. They're all on the PlayStation 1. They've all got that classic PS1 stank to them that I kind of like just from an OMG So Retro point. It's kind of funny how PS1 games, I think when I wasn't around, you know, and conscious when the PS1 came out. When did the PS1 actually come out, actually? I genuinely don't know. Was I alive? Guys, what year did it come out? But I have this idea that, like, when it came out, people were probably pretty ecstatic about, like, wow, look at this, like, 3D graphics, this is so awesome. And then, I think when maybe the PS2 and 3 came out, they were kind of like, oh my god, you know, can you believe how dated the graphics on the PS1 are? But now, in modern times, it's like PS1 graphics are an absolute vibe. Like, they just got a weird schmism to them. December 94. Okay. So I was not alive. I was born in 1996. So take what you will from that. That's funny, actually. 94. So PlayStation beat N64 to the punch by like a decent amount of time then. That's kind of neat. I think, right? Because N64 was what, like 90... I think N64 was 96, I want to say. Maybe I'm crazy. Old streamer. It's funny because I'm a young... I don't know. I'm 29, actually. I had a birthday recently. Did you guys know I'm 29? I'm about to be 30. I know Vinny just turned 40, which is insane. Is that actually... Like, is that... Like, he's 40? Like, that's nuts. Like, was that a joke or is that real? Anyway, we're all getting old, man. 29 is young. I'm young. Excuse me. So, I was able to enjoy the Kingsfield, the first 3 Kingsfield games as listed here, in the sense that they got that PS1 stank. They've got cool music, I think, and cool atmosphere. That you gotta hand it to them. I always enjoyed the opening cutscenes in these games. I don't know if there were more cutscenes as the game went on. Surely there were ones at like the end of the games, but there just wasn't a lot keeping me playing them. It was just kind of like, man, these controls, like, I know it's tank controls, but that's the least of your worries in these games. It's also just so slow, and I'm gonna say it, clunky, very clunky. Felt very imprecise. It just felt like PS1 games in general, and just a lot of early 3D games, have this feeling like everything's underwater, like everything just moves slowly and weirdly. And all the animations are like so rudimentary to the point where it's like, aw, you know, it's like kind of cute. But at the same time, there just wasn't a lot keeping me interested. It was, a lot of it was just like, walk through the maze and fight the samey enemies with the shitty combat. And I'm kind of just like, why am I here? Whenever I encountered any sort of NPC or any sort of like unique environment, or there was one time that I found like, I want to say it was like a giant spider or like a giant rat or something. I was like, whoa, a boss. Like, this is crazy. That was pretty cool. Like the very few and far between moments of like genuine discovery felt cool, but so much of it, it was just like, yeah, this is just kind of like ugly and dull and not very fun, which I kind of sound like a chud saying this because I know Kingsfield has like a dedicated fan base of people who say that like even today going back and playing these games can be enjoyable. And I'm not gonna say those people are like lying or have bad taste or whatever, but I disagree. I disagree. I just don't think they're terribly fun. But the thing I do admire is the atmosphere, and I think the atmosphere and the music in particular, which I think really did go on to inform a little bit about like Demon's Souls and Dark Souls and all those in the future. I don't know how much overlap there was. I would actually be curious to see, like, look at the credits of the Kingsfield series and then look at the credits in like the modern FromSoft Dark Souls, you know, era, and see how much overlap there is. I can't imagine there's too much overlap. I don't think the director Miyazaki was with the company when Kingsfield was being made, but I just wonder how many creatives or developers in general were, you know, in the middle part of the Venn diagram between these two series. But there was just a lot I disliked. Oh man, I don't even remember which of these games had the like power meter. It was like, instead of the stamina meter that you have in the Souls series, it was power. And it was like, when it like functions basically identically to a stamina meter. It's like you swing your sword, the meter depletes. But it's like when the meter, if you swing your sword or your weapon or whatever, when the meter is only partially filled, then it like only does a partial amount of damage. So there were some times where it was like, the best way that I can find to deal with this enemy is just to spam the lightest possible attack at it over and over again, which does like almost no damage but stun locks it in place. And that just kind of felt like, I don't know, sloppy game design. Maybe I'm just bad, maybe there was a better way to deal with it, but and just frequently with combat in these games, I just felt like it was like, kite the enemies, go in for a swing, back away when they do their attack, go in for a swing, back away when they do their attack. I don't know. It's funny, I think about dedicated Kingsfield fans, and I'm wondering, like, they must have just been, like, jizzing fucking gallons when Demon's Souls came out. Like, oh my god, it's Kingsfield, but like a million billion times better. Like, maybe that's a poor assertion, but I I just can't, like, I don't know. It's hard to go back to them. And I certainly, I like to think I didn't fall into the trap of being like, it's gonna be just like Dark Souls. Like, I knew it was gonna be dated. I tried to go into it with an open mind, but I really genuinely did not want to play these more than, you know. I think one of these games, I forget which one, I did multiple streams of, but most of them it was just basically one-off. So what are we gonna rank these? I honestly think I would give no's on all of these. In my memory, I want to say the first, like the Japanese exclusive, and the fourth game were my favorites. The fourth, I think, seemed like the one that I would most want to return to. However, when I say most, that's not a lot. That's not a lot of desire. That's tiny little grains of desire. Sorry, blow break, everybody. Blow them if you got them. So, no's across the board. I'm sorry to Kingsfield fans. And again, my level of enjoyment includes, you know, the ooh-ah retro gaming tourist factor, my enjoyment of PS1 stank. I maybe would give this like a 4. I just swear I'm not comparing it to Hexen, which got the exact same score. That's just what I think in my head. And then honestly, I'm gonna do like 3.5, 3.5. 2 and 3 really blend together in my head, honestly, and then maybe 4 for Kingsfield 4. Let's go with that. They're not. Keep in mind that these are not super informed opinions because I did not play very much of these games. So you could say, honestly, like these say quick look, but honestly, I gave up on all of them. It really maybe should say gave up. But when I was going into them, when I say gave up on this spreadsheet, that means I went into it intending to finish it and didn't. Whereas these, I was kind of like on the fence going in. I was like, if I like it, I'll continue playing it, and if I don't, I won't. Not a lot of games I do that way, I think, honestly. Okay, here we are. Finally, Dark Souls Prepare to Die Edition. This game fucking sucks. It's just ass. It's so slow. The controls are so clunky. And the graphics, I mean, you can see the squares. No, you can't see the squares in this game. No, Dark Souls 1, tremendous video game. It's near and dear to my heart, as well as the hearts of many gamers. Now, I'm kind of just gonna talk about like this whole range of FromSoft games. I'm gonna maybe not try to like compartmentalize and just talk about one specific one at a time. So pardon me if I sort of flit back and forth between like through the whole series, but I haven't played Demon's Souls. That is omitted here because I just haven't touched it, the original or the remake, although I own the original and I have access to a PS3 on which to play it now, so maybe that'll happen soon, who knows. But my original Souls experience was Dark Souls 1, as it was with many people, I believe, and it really was an unforgettable experience. It genuinely is one of those games that I think plenty of people would love to have their memory wiped of the experience they had with the game just so they could experience it all over again. Although I also think the replay value of it is amazing as well. I've enjoyed, you know, digging deeper and deeper into it over the course of time. But it's hard to sum up Dark Souls in just a sentence or two, you know? Like, obviously the games are difficult, and they have this very sort of dark, oppressive atmosphere. I kind of think one of my favorite things about these games is the tone in them. A lot of games, I just take issues with the tone, like, there'll be, I mean, like, talk about fucking Hawks 2. There's a game with, like, a terrible sense of tone, in my opinion. Whereas Dark Souls, it's got this perfect, fucking creamy blend of, like, grim, dark, depressing world mixed with this kind of hopeful whimsy that I think is just such a beautiful blend, and I think that just works so well for the type of game that it is. And the combat, it takes a little getting used to, but once you get into it, it's so compelling and so fun, and the systems in this game are so fun to explore. That's one of the things that I think adds to the replay value of it so much, is like, there's so many different ways to play the game. Yes, some of them are more viable than others. They all have their own weaknesses and strengths, but, you know, I kind of think a lot of what I like in this game, strangely, counterintuitively, is like the roughness of it. The fact that it doesn't have every little edge sanded down. Like, that just makes it feel like such a substantial and real experience. We've slipped into Sonic Colors OST, by the way. After this song, I'll swap over to Echo. So I think to a lot of people, you know, you might play a Dark Souls game and be like, oh, there's just like so many weird, like, things that I think some people would perceive as just basically like errors almost, like just like mistakes in game design, like, oh, they didn't think about this one little... I can't even really think of any examples off the top of my head, but like, just broadly thinking currently about like builds and the way that, you know, some weapons just totally nullify certain enemy types, and then other builds really struggle with those enemy types. It's like some people would call that poor balance, but it's actually like, to my mind, that sort of stuff is like really exciting and interesting, and it's like replaying a game and having the experience be totally different the second time. Like, how many runs of Dark Souls have I done on stream? Because we did Lark Souls, I did the Spellcaster run, and then I want to say I did another one just for kicks. Maybe I didn't. No, I think I'm thinking of like Dark Souls 3 Ceases Deace's run or something. But I've played through it a few times, and I still want to do a Faith build one day. But just the variety and the interesting systems, I think, just itch my brain in a deeply satisfactory way. Also, obviously, the level design and world design is super cool. I really, like, there's other Metroidvanias that do a similar thing, but, and everybody says this about Dark Souls, but it does bear repeating. The way that the world loops in on itself, and the weird little connections and shortcuts that you find are so mind-blowing and so cool. Like, that's such an amazing... I think when people say, you know, I wish I could erase my memory of this game and experience it again, that's one of the things that they really would love to... Like, that's one of the things that experiencing it for the first time, you're like, wow. Like, in particular, for some reason in my head, the one that always occurs to me as being like mind-blowing, like, I know there's all that stuff with like the Valley of the Drakes, like that shit's very cool, but taking that elevator from the Undead Parish and having it just seamlessly take you down to Firelink Shrine is such a crazy experience the first time. I know it's like, it's literally just an elevator ride back to the hub, basically, but that's like one of my most treasured memories in that game, was realizing like, holy shit, this just links up perfectly. And I think, you know, it's been documented, well documented, that Dark Souls, all the level geometry more or less fits together in a way that makes logical sense, and like distant views, this is something that Illusory Wall has covered in detail, distant views of other levels are more or less accurate. Like, the whole world just makes sense, and I think people don't necessarily notice that on a conscious level while playing the game, but subconsciously it affects you, and you go, wow, this really feels like a real location. It feels very well realized, even though like maybe there's a few little like video gamey blips in reality here and there. You know, I mean, there's like a part where you go into a painting and shit like that, but for the most part, it's like, wow, the world just feels so substantial and real and well designed, and you just like it. I don't know. Anyone else know what I mean about how Dark Souls is a good video game that brings good feelings into your brain? It's just cool and endlessly compelling. I really... I kind of struggle to put into exact words why I like it so much. And it's funny because I think I went into it not really sure what to expect because I had heard so much bullshit about it, basically. Because I was like, oh, you know, everybody talks about, oh, it's like the hardest game of all time, and it's like not even fucking remotely close to the hardest game of all time. It's just like, oh man, we're not listening to this while I talk about Dark Souls. No. Give me Echo the Dolphin. They put adventure in the adventure game. That's so true. You know, I don't know if this is something that I said or if this is something that I heard from someone else. I think I remember somebody saying this, but I don't remember who. And I always thought this was like such an interesting statement about Dark Souls, is that every part of it points to every other part of it. Like, it's cohesive. If that makes any sense at all. It's like everything just works together so well. The characters and the dialogue and the gameplay itself, the Ludo narrative, the written item descriptions and the music and the visual style, it's just like everything, it's like what a beautiful blend they have created in this game. Like let's just say they cooked. Let's just say they fucking cooked. Now, a small aside is that the Prepare to Die edition is no longer available, I believe. I think it's been delisted from stores. The only version that you can play now is Dark Souls Remastered, which I've also played. I guess I could technically throw that on here, but I'll just talk about it now. I could toss it at the bottom of the list on a technicality, but it's... The remastered version is barely different, in my opinion. There's been plenty of comparisons made about like, oh, like the remaster actually looks kind of worse in some ways but better in others, and like they fucked up this thing and this glitch got patched. There's a bunch of like little tiny differences between them, but for the most part it's like I don't have a problem with the remastered version. They added some good quality of life stuff. They sanded off some of the roughness that I don't mind being sanded away, like some of that shit about like, oh, you know, giving covenant offerings, you used to have to do it one at a time, and that was so painfully boring, and now you can just select a number of like humanities to give to Quilana or whatever. That's a good change. They added one bonfire. Funny, very funny. I remember, this is just a silly little anecdote. When Lark and I were streaming Dark Souls 1, somebody was like furiously like typing in our chat or like in the comments or something, like, you know, screaming at us about how we need to go to like the bonfire by Vamos in the catacombs, not knowing, I guess they had only played the remastered version, and it's like they had no way of knowing this, so I don't necessarily blame them. But I was like, ah, my poor sweet innocent child. That is like, that bonfire is like the one super substantial change in level design between the original and the new one. It's just a funny bit. But I do, you know, they kind of cooked with that bonfire placement. Can you warp to that bonfire in remastered? I don't know, actually. I also think, genuinely, the topic of warping in these games is sort of a hot button issue. I think if you're gonna play any of the Souls games, I genuinely think you should start with Dark Souls 1. I mean, I can't account, this is just ignoring Demon's Souls, which I know is perhaps unfair. I just haven't played it yet. But I would suggest starting with Dark Souls 1. I think the whole thing that goes on in Dark Souls 1, where it doesn't let you fast travel until halfway through the game, is kinda genius. I actually kinda love that decision. And that being said, in all the later games where they just give you fast travel off the bat, I don't mind that, but there's something really special about the way Dark Souls 1 makes you actually think about, like, routing and where you're going, and, like, in a way that's more involved and immersive than it is in the other games. Because I think, you know, part of the reason why people think so much about the interconnectivity and the design of the world in Dark Souls is because in the first part of the game, it forces you to come to terms with how everything is connected. It makes you understand it, you know, on a conscious or a subconscious level. And I think that's kind of genius. And I kind of think, I don't know, like, should they have done that in Dark Souls 2 and 3? Maybe. But it might have just been obnoxious. The world design is different in those games, so maybe it would have been more obnoxious. But I kind of love the whole, like, Lord Vessel halfway through the game thing. I think that's just, like, something that makes this game really special, for me at least. That being said, I don't necessarily agree with the decision to only make certain bonfires warpable. I don't really get why they did that. People were saying the Vamos bonfire is warpable, which is cool. And it's kind of funny. I notice this is something that sticks out to me like a sore thumb when replaying this game. When you've got every bonfire in the game and you look at the locations list, the warpable locations, it's like a bunch of random crap, you know, there's some, you know, definitely some important ones where it's like, here's the bonfire that's near Quilana, here's the bonfire that's near, you know, here's the Firelink Shrine one, here's one in, there's two in Orlando. Ones that are like near important stuff that you might need to go back to frequently. I think the one near Andre is also warpable, right? But I don't really understand why they couldn't have just made every bonfire warpable. I don't understand what doing that would have taken away from the game at that point. But I guess my best guess is that they wanted you to be thinking consciously about routing even after you get the fast travel, but that's just a guess. But it's kind of funny how when you're looking at that list of warpable locations, it's like a bunch of random crap, and then in the DLC, every single bonfire is warpable. So it's like, blah, 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 random crap, Daughters of Chaos, blah, 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 the depths, and then it's like, Ulasil Township, Ulasil Dungeon, Ulasil blah, 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 blah. It's just like 5 of them in a row say Ulasil, because at that point they realized, maybe there's not much of a point in restricting which bonfires are warpable. So that's something that's an edge that maybe I would sand off if given the opportunity that I will, of course, never have. Can't you warp to any fire you kindle? No, I don't think so. That would be cool, though. That would be kind of a neat. Maybe they should do that. But anyway, what else is there to say? I think I've basically got the gist of it for Dark Souls 1. Really incredible video game. I again would say, if you are going to play FromSoft games, I would heartily recommend them. Don't be off-put by some fucking random backwards baseball cap dude bro saying it's the hardest game of all time. It's not. You can totally do it. You'll struggle at the beginning, and then you'll get into the groove, and it will be such an immensely rewarding and satisfying experience. Yeah, big recommend. Play this one first. Personally, I really think just in terms of like, wow, I enjoy this game so much. Obviously, it's not perfect. You can say a bunch of shit about how like Lost Izalith is bad or like the Tomb of Giants is bad, but I really think, going back to that thing I said about, like, loving it for all of its roughness, I kind of think it's a 10. I know it's such a, like, this guy's a gamer, he's giving Dark Souls a 10, but, like, I really just think it's not necessarily flawless, but it is, like, perfect in its imperfection, in a way. And maybe that's the stupidest thing anyone's ever said, but it's what I feel in my heart. Somebody in chat put it very succinctly. ID gaff, it's Peem. Very true. Very, very true. And so, little side note here, I guess for some reason I listed Dark Souls Enemy Randomizer as a different thing. I guess that makes sense. It's a different experience. But this was a fun way to sort of remix Dark Souls. I found it very enjoyable because it invited lots of delectable, enjoyable jank into the game, which I found very fun. And there's a lot of, I mean, the randomizer that I used, I think there's multiple different randomizers you can choose from. I don't recall which one it was that I used personally, but the one that I used had a lot of good, you know, customizable settings. You could customize it so that, like, it was pure fucking chaos, like, literally every enemy is, like, totally random, or you could also have it set to be like a difficulty curve, where it was like, okay, the enemies will be randomized, but it's not gonna, you know, turn the first undead in the undead asylum into Gwyn, you know? So it was very cool, very fun. I don't know. There were some parts of it that were definitely quite frustrating, but then honestly at those points I just re-rolled the enemy placements, teehee. I've totally thought about doing other randomizers for Dark Souls, because it's just fun, and I'll take anything Dark Souls related in every slack, unlubricated hole. That's gonna be another one where people are gonna be like, oh, Grapefruit was so foul for saying that. It's like, nah, bro, it's a zero punctuation reference. You can't come after me for that one. So yes, would recommend. I'm sorry I don't recall. Maybe I mentioned it in the actual streams, what the actual randomizer was. But I gave it like a 9. It was certainly a bit of a, you know, janky experience, and that was kind of fun, but also I can see, you know, it definitely wasn't as constructed and peem, as they say, as playing Prepare to Die Edition. It was just kind of like, yeah, okay. One thing also, just like briefly going back to Dark Souls 1, that I'm not the biggest fan of. Now, I like the soundtrack, some of those songs, a lot of the like slower music, the title screen music, man, fucking Firelink Shrine, the credits music, those are very, very good. I think some of the boss themes, the boss themes can be cool too. Ornstein and Smough, Iron Golem, you know, there's some great songs in there, but, and you know, I'm not trying to like judge them based on just listening to them out of context of the game, but I honestly think Dark Souls 1 is kind of overshadowed by its sequels in terms of the OST. Dark Souls 3 OST goes fucking ridiculously sloppy. Like, it's so good. That's one tiny little thing about Dark Souls 1 that, like, it doesn't bother me necessarily, like it's a certain style of music. Yeah, the character creation music in Dark Souls 1. Oh, Moonlight Butterfly. Oh, yeah. Is that song called Moonlight Butterfly, or is it called Guinevere? No, not Guinevere. Fuck. Dark Sun Gwendolyn? Is that what it's called? Who knows? Have you heard the prog albums written by the Dark Souls 1 composer? What? No. What the fuck do you mean? Prog albums by the Dark Souls 1 composer. What the fuck does that mean? Dark Souls 1 composer. Prog rock? I assume like progressive rock? What? I'm gonna have to look into this. I can't play it here, but I will check that out. Wow, wild. Anyway. Seath boss music be like, oh, 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 plink, plink, plink. Kinda, a little bit. Oh, and like Gwyn's theme is a classic. That one, it gives me chills. It makes me cry. Beautiful, beautiful song. So great soundtrack, but some of the boss themes I think are overshadowed by some of the boss themes in Dark Souls 2 and especially 3. Anyway, Dark Souls 2, very sort of controversial game. Oh, everybody's got to have some sort of spicy take. Everybody's got to sit here and have their like video essay where it's like, Dark Souls 2 is the best, worst game that you definitely should never play, and you should play it. You know, and it's like, people get so up their own ass about like having a take on Dark Souls 2, whereas I think, you know, most fans of the series have, like, come to the pretty reasonable opinion that, like, it's a great game. It's probably the lesser of the three. I know there's a lot of Dark Souls 3 haters out there. I love Dark Souls 3 personally. I think it's like... Dark Souls 3 is like right up there with Bloodborne for me, frankly. But, I know there's lots of people who say, like, oh, it's hard for me not to see a little bit of contrarianism coming from people who are like, yeah, Dark Souls 2 is like by far the best one. It's like my absolute favorite. It's like, you're entitled to your opinion, but I just kind of like, while playing Dark Souls 2, I'm just kind of like, really? Like, it's a great game, but it's probably the worst out of the trilogy, but that's not saying much. This is like saying Kirby's Dream Land 2 is like the worst OG Kirby game, where it's like, yeah, it's still fun, you know? Yeah, it's something I always hear, Matthew Matosis. People are always like, oh, like, everybody just parrots Matthew Matosis's opinions. I don't know if I've actually seen that video, but I assume he, like, dunks on the game. There is certainly a lot, I mean, it's like, man, if you like roughness, then Dark Souls 2 is the game for you, man, because there's certainly a lot more roughness to it. Sadly, I think for me it kind of does bridge, it crosses over into being genuinely irritating and just feeling unpolished at times. Now, huge disclaimer, I think part of the flame that burns in the Dark Souls 2 discourse is there are two groups of people. People who primarily have memories of the original version of the game, and people who primarily have memories of the Scholar of the First Sin version of the game. I've never played the original. I've only played Scholar of the First Sin, so anything that I talk about here, it's possible that it's different in the original, or it's possible that it's better in Scholar of the First Sin and it's even worse in the original. I will... Oh, shit, wait, no, but Audio Jungle, Audio Jungle, Audio Jungle. Ah-ee-ooh, ah-ee-ooh. We can't listen to Ginger Root, sorry. Let me put on Mother 3, Listen, I love Ginger Root, but let's put on Mother 3 OST. Oh, not Gygas theme, no. Let's get into, like, some of the cheerier Mother 3 stuff. Maybe this isn't the best. No, what's another, like, soundtrack that we can go to? Yeah, Persona 3, sure. Sorry to... Oh man, this is a good song. So I can only speak to what's in the Scholar of the First Sin edition. I plan to eventually play Dark Souls 2 original. I've been kind of hankering for a Souls game recently, and I think it's between playing OG Dark Souls 2 and playing Demon Souls. Maybe both, we'll see. But Scholar of the First Sin, there's a bunch of, like, really irritating stuff. I do think genuinely, like, that, and I know that I will be crucified for saying this by the diehard Dark Souls 2 fans. They spam too many enemies at you, man. There's just a few parts of the game that stand out in my memory as, like, why the fuck would you fucking put this many enemies with aggro radiuses like this in the game? I remember the first time I played it, I really struggled on No Man's Wharf. I kind of never struggled on it that much again after that, I think. Maybe I did in Lark Souls, but that was an area, that was the first time where I was kind of like, oh my god, like, there's just so many enemies, just constantly, and it was such a frequent occurrence that multiple of them would get aggroed onto you at once, and then it has that snowball effect of, well, I can try futilely to engage multiple enemies at once in the Dark Souls combat engine, which doesn't always go well. Or I can try just running away like an asshole. I can either try sprinting through the level, or I can, yeah, those four-legged, somebody said those fucking four-legged things near the top. Absolutely, those were so irritating. And then a few other just fucked up moments where it was like, at what point do you think, yeah, that's enough enemies? The lead up, I think, to my mind, the worst part of the entire game in Dark Souls 2, again, in Scholar of the First Sin, is the walk up to the Executioner's Chariot, where you've got that little, there's that valley. It's not a valley, it's like a culvert. It's like a ditch, basically, where there's a bunch of those, like, I always called them like the S&M mummies or something, the guys with like the bandages wrapped around their faces that have those weird like whip weapons, and in that little culvert, this always bugged the shit out of me. Totally unlabeled. I don't know why the hell their aggro works like this. If you go down one side of it, you can aggro them one at a time and pick them off tediously. That's the better way to do it. But if you go the other way, they just all jump down at once. And there's no fucking reason. It's not like you're concealed or anything. It's just totally unmarked, like invisible line def on the ground. Just determines whether you're gonna get completely ganked. It's also like that in vanilla, so sad. But that shit just sucked so much ass. I just remember getting so pissed off at that, and then it's like, oh, and then after that, you know, frequently you're gonna be running past those guys if you don't understand the trick of going down the unlabeled side of the chasm that just for whatever reason aggroes them one at a time. Then you got that big long bridge full of holes after that that has like a couple little random zombie men to trip you up, and then fucking Forlorn shows up, and you're just like, you know, you just die in that instant. You're like, just fucking kill me, just blow me up. And then there's also the Iron Keep. That was just like, I think I saw a video on YouTube that was like, if you struggled on the Iron Keep, then you're bad at Dark Souls. And I was like, I ain't clicking on that shit, bro. I don't care if I don't care if this guy thinks I'm bad at Dark Souls. Iron Keep fucking sucks ass. Like, that shit sucked. Actually, one of the only times, I'm not a controller abuser. I've never, I don't spike controllers. I just don't really see the point in it. And like, my emotions never become so, you know, enraged that I wish to destroy things around me. But there was, I think in the Iron Keep, the first time I was playing through that game, there was one time where it was just like, I was just struggling and struggling and struggling to get like just even into the Smelter Demon arena. Over and over and over again, because just there's so many enemies and so many archers and such dickish enemy placements in that area. And there was one time, I remember it very distinctly, I was standing with my back to a wall, and there were like 9 of those like Alon Knights near me. And I held up my sword for like the weak attack, and it clinked off the wall directly behind me, like I'm holding my sword above and behind my head, and the sword clinked off the wall behind me, and I got stun locked by attacks and died. And that was when I had this really shitty controller that was in really poor repair, and I was like, wow, I'm so pissed off right now, and this controller is such a piece of shit, and I have a better controller in the room that I can just swap to. Why am I still using this terrible controller? And I decided, in a calculated moment of rage, to grab the controller by the cable and swing it like a mace into the ground and just like annihilated it. So that's the only time I've ever smashed or, you know, spiked a controller in any way, and man was it satisfying. It got annihilated. It just like, it went everywhere. It was pretty funny. But it was just like, man, I am so fucking seething mad at the Iron Keep right now, and I have a perfect opportunity to outlet this rage on this like dog water controller. So I took the opportunity. Memorable gaming moment. But, and then you've got, there's a bunch more bullshit moments too. for whatever reason, in all 3 of the DLCs, which the DLCs are, I think, noticeably higher quality and a little bit, like, less stupid than the main game, in terms of, like, some of these dumb enemy placements. But it was like they couldn't kick the habit, because each of the 3 DLCs also has one bullshit area. Where it's like, and I think the intent was you're supposed to go into it with, like, summons, but if you're playing these games in the modern day when, like, there's not a ton of online activity, you're kind of just fucked, and it's just like, oh yeah, you're just gonna go through, like, enemy spam hell to get to, like, Sur Alon, to get to the, probably the worst part in any of the DLCs is the Grave Robber Trio, I think is the colloquial name. What's the full name of that boss? It's fucking terrible. It's like a 10-lane fucking pile-up of words. Let's just search. Grave Robber Trio. Let's just look. Here's the full name of the boss, okay? Let me read you the full name of this stupid fuck-ass boss. That's a bunch of reused... It's just a bunch of... And it's 3 NPCs that you fight at once that have a boss health bar. Sarah, the Old Explorer, Ancient Soldier Varg, and the Afflicted Grave Robber. Fuck me, man. And that boss fight is terrible. So annoying. And so stupid and unmemorable and unfun. Oh, I just couldn't fucking believe my eyes when I was playing that part of the game. So this is all the complaints that right now. I know it sounds like I'm hating on the game unabashedly. These are just all, I think, in my opinion, perfectly fucking salient reasons to talk smack about Dark Souls 2. These are the shitty parts. The other shitty thing is the lighting is noticeably worse. The visual effects, I'm not like a huge VFX guy, but the lighting was so ass in that game compared to 1 and 3, and quite famously, Dark Souls 2 went through a troubled development cycle that kind of led to it being, it was botched. It was a botched game. At a certain point, to my understanding, it was like they had a certain amount of the game done, and then they kind of had to rework a bunch of it because a lot of the development team like changed positions. Like I think the original creative director like left the project, and then someone else had to come in and pick up the pieces. I don't know which one of those was Miyazaki, if he left the project or if he joined in at the end. I want to say Miyazaki started out working on the project and then left to work on Bloodborne, but I could be wrong. Actually, was Bloodborne before Dark Souls 2? No way, right? Bloodborne sometimes shocks me in how early it came out. I'm always kind of like, whoa, Dark Souls, like Bloodborne was that early? Let me just check here. Yeah, okay, no. Dark Souls 2 came out before Bloodborne, but it was like a year of difference. So, yeah, Miyazaki just wasn't involved in Dark Souls 2 at all. Yeah, that sounds right. But regardless, I don't know any of the actual details, obviously. The whole thing is kind of shrouded in mystery in a way, but it's easy to see when playing the game that something was up when they were developing this game. And, you know, this music's kind of distracting. I like Persona music, but you don't want to do Deltarune music because unfortunately, it's going to get fucking copyright claimed. Ooh, Silent Hill, do Silent Hill music, yeah. That's good. True. The song is called True. You have any thoughts on this, chat? Get this man a true. So, yeah, Deltarune and Undertale music will get copyright claimed because Toby Fox published the music through a company that is just really bad about DMCA on YouTube. And Toby Fox, I think, even issued a statement at one point that was like, if you make any Undertale or Deltarune content on YouTube, email me and I will like lift the copyright thing off of your video specifically. I don't know if he's made good on that, It seems like a Herculean undertaking with how much Undertale and Deltarune stuff there is on the internet. Who knows? I know that my VODs have got claimed for it just for playing the video games. Anyway. Yeah, Materia Collective. Anyway. So, Dark Souls 2, the visuals are a noticeable step down. A lot of people like to say that there's like a bunch of ugly repeating textures in this game. I genuinely just think that's a result of the reduced quality of the lighting system. Rather famously, there was some footage of Dark Souls 2 that was shown early on like IGN and stuff that looked really good, and it looked like actually really impressive lighting effects, but I think they actually had to scale it back for tech reasons, basically, like so that the game would run well on consoles and such. So I think they kind of didn't want a repeat of the incident with Dark Souls 1, which famously on launch had a lot of stability issues and ran really poorly in certain parts of the game. I never had to deal with that with Dark Souls, because I played it well after launch when either PCs just got good enough to the point where that wasn't an issue, or the game got patched, or the Prepare to Die edition fixed it, or whatever. But I think they were trying to avoid that kind of thing with Dark Souls 2, and unfortunately, visually the game kind of took a hit on it. Also, something I don't see anyone else say, but something that I kind of feel like I see in this game, the animations are a little clunky and weird. There's the Falconer enemy. There's an enemy in this game that has just like a straight up unfinished running animation that is very funny. If you ever like look specifically at it, whenever you see the Falconer enemy in, I want to say like the Shaded Woods area in Dark Souls 2, their legs, the way they move is just hilarious. It's like, wow, it was a half-baked animation. But even then, like a lot of the other animations of like enemy attacks and stuff, and even the player character, just feel kind of stilted and awkward and weird at times. And it's like, not only is it like, you know, the quality of the animation is obviously something to take into consideration as like a piece of art, but also in terms of gameplay, like reacting to enemy attacks is a little harder when their movements feel stilted and unnatural. And you could say that that's, you know, there's definitely times in the Souls series that they do that kind of thing on purpose, but there's a lot of times in Dark Souls 2 where it kind of feels unintentional. And also the parry, I never really liked the parry in Dark Souls 2. Something about it just feels weird and wrong compared to the way it's like, it's so satisfying landing parries in Dark Souls 1 and 3 and in Bloodborne and even Elden Ring. But in Dark Souls 2, it just kind of is like, it just kind of feels bad, I don't know. Like in Dark Souls 1, it's like, boom! You know, when you land a parry, it's like pure serotonin. And then in Dark Souls 2, it's like, oh, I did it, I think. You know? Anyway. Those are all my gripes with this game. Everything else about it, I really do like. The enemy ganking aside and the sort of lesser visuals at times, everything else about it is awesome. Pure Dark Souls goodness. Interesting areas, varied environments, cool enemy design, cool boss design. I think a lot of people say that, like, there's some weak bosses in this game, but I kind of don't care. Like, in my heart of hearts, I don't give a shit about, like, Prowling Magus and Congregation or whatever. Like, I just think it's kind of funny, and I don't mind there being an enormous amount of bosses in the game. There's definitely some... there's some bosses that are lesser than others. I think, man, speaking of, actually, here's a horrible gank moment that I forgot to mention. Royal Rat Vanguard, I want to say, because there's two rat bosses. The one that's like a shitty version of Sif the Great Grey Wolf, that is a low point of Dark Souls 2, in my opinion. But, like, that one fucking sucks. Royal Rat Authority, sorry. Vanguard is like a ton of little rats. I love the one that's a ton of little rats. The one that's one big rat and then 4 small ones that toxic you, that's like, what the fuck were they thinking? Like, genuinely, what were they thinking? But overall, I think the bosses are cool. I don't mind that there's a ton of them. I think if you take like a full count of all the bosses in these games, Dark Souls 2 has like by far the most. But I think they're good. I mean, I remember liking them. Even some of the ones that might look a little generic, like the old Iron King and stuff like that. I really don't mind them. It's just like, yippee, more cakes. Oh boy, 2 cakes. Holy shit, 2 cakes. But cool bosses. The combat is for the most part fun. It's like Dark Souls 1 combat. The whole ADP thing kind of sucks, but once you know that ADP is a thing, it's not really that much of an issue. It's just like something that you level alongside everything else. And I think a lot of people really got on the wrong foot with Dark Souls 2 because they don't know about ADP, and then they don't level it at all, which I don't think I blame those people at all. Like, it's pretty obfuscated. Yes, it's like, oh, if you do the thing that nobody fucking in human history has ever done, and look at the menu descriptions of what each stat does, then yes, it does say that it improves rolling or something like that. But I don't even know if it mentions that it also makes you drink your Estus faster. And so many people complain about the Estus in that game being so slow, which it is. But it's like, you just gotta level ADP, bro. So that's kind of... I know I said I was done talking about the bad and was ready to move on to the good, but oops, keep remembering flaws. But anyway, I do think it's kind of, the combat kind of has a different feel to it. I enjoy life gems. I think that's a cool aspect to the game. The way that, especially early in the game, they kind of make you more or less rely on them while you have almost no Estus to work with, and while your Estus sip is so slow. I kind of like that. You take a slightly different approach to combat than in the first game, and there's a lot to appreciate about that, and the fact that the developers clearly put like intent, like they were thinking about like, how do we mix up the combat a little bit, and I like that. The environments are great. There's so many memorable environments. I'm thinking about like the place where you fight the Pursuer, all that shit with the giant memories. That stuff wasn't in the original, right? I think that's all Scholar of the First Sin, maybe I'm wrong, but the Giant's memories are fucking badass. That shit is so cool. They cooked so hard with that. Especially the one, it was in the original? Whack. What did they even add in Scholar of the First Sin then? I thought that was all that stuff was like the lead up to... No, I guess, because you have to do that stuff to kill Vendrick, so it must have been in the original. That makes sense. But anyway, that stuff is really cool, regardless of what version it originated in. Really interesting part of the game that sets it apart from other Souls games, particularly. It's such a crazy concept thinking, because like so many of these Souls games, it's like, you're walking around the once great society and its ruination, and then it's like, oh, but what if you got like little glimpses of what that world was like when it was actually populated and like, you know, thriving or whatever. Thriving is a stretch, but you know, you get these weird glimpses into the past that are really cool. I love the stuff with like, you slay the giant lord in the past, and then you meet him in the present. It's like, well, you meet him in the present first, and then you slay him in the past later. That shit is so cool. All the stuff relating to Vendrick, I love Vendrick's story. I love that reveal, that it's kind of a rug pull moment when you see Vendrick for the first time and you're like, oh, this isn't going to be a cool climactic boss fight. This is like kind of emotionally devastating and like makes me love him as a character. Great, just overall Vendrick, everything about him is awesome. Great lore, great storytelling, well presented, cool character. So yeah, a lot of variety. I think possibly more variety in the areas than Dark Souls 1, I want to say. Which Dark Souls 1, of course, very near and dear to my heart. I love those areas, but there's just, I think, more variety in Dark Souls 2. Yes, it feels a little disjointed, and people love to criticize this game for not having the same sort of interconnectedness and realism that the first game has in its world design, but I am definitely on team it's dreamlike in Dark Souls 2. Like, it's definitely supposed to have, like, maybe they were originally intending, this is kind of a death of the author comment, like, maybe they were originally intending to make the world make sense and be more cohesive like the first game, and then they kind of had to, like, cobble it together in development and work with what they had. But I think some of those moments, like going into, here's another memorable elevator ride, the top of the Earthen Peak going up into the bottom of the Iron Keep makes no fucking sense, but I think it's kind of a cool, like, whoa, what the fuck is happening moment, especially coming off the heels of Dark Souls 1. I think it's dreamlike, you know? I kind of enjoy that aspect of it in a weird way. And then Dark Souls 3 kind of, like, went on to do more with that concept in a sense when it has the whole, like, converging of lands thing. Dark Souls 3, I love Dark Souls 3 so much, man. It kind of has that, like, cohesive world design, but also a little bit of the dreaminess of Dark Souls 2, in the sense that it has, you know, the shifting lands, everything's, like, kind of moving, and so some stuff doesn't really make a huge amount of sense from, like, a traditional, like, architectural standpoint, but in this fantasy world it does make sense, and I like that. So yeah, Dark Souls 2, there's certainly a lot of flaws, but there's a lot to love. It's kind of a shame that Scholar of the First Sin didn't, like, fix it more. You know what I mean? It's kind of just like an alternate version of the game, rather than really, like, man, I would have loved, like, a nice daring, I don't know, it's some of the flaws in Dark Souls 2, it's like it's clear that they were going for something different, and then there's some flaws where it's just kind of like they just, like, tripped and fell over and fucked up making the game. You know? So I kind of would have loved it if they had made Scholar of the First Sin a little more of, like, an involved, like, kind of like a remaster or something. I know it came out like a year after the first version, but whatever. It's a cool game. There's certainly some obnoxious parts. It's got more it's like every Souls game has obnoxious parts, but this one has the most obnoxious parts in the highest frequency, in my opinion. But still a ton of cool stuff. A lot of what I said about Dark Souls 1 applies to this one. Love the storytelling, the way everything sort of connects. It's quite cohesive. It's just a lesser experience by, like, a decent amount, honestly. I think I would give this, like, an 8.5 personally. Really, really cool game. I've spent a lot of time in it. I would recommend it. It's kind of a shame about some of the flaws, though. Is there anything else I want to, like, say about it? I feel like there was something I was gonna say and then I forgot. Whatever. Anyway, Dark Souls 3. I fucking love Dark Souls 3. I think sometimes I hear people hate on this game and I go, like, did we play the same video game? Like, what are you talking about? Are you on crack? Like, it's awesome, but maybe it's just me. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I'm not saying anybody's, like, stupid if they don't like this one or anything. But I really love, for me, Dark Souls 3 and Bloodborne are, like, companion pieces. And Dark Souls 3, I think it has a fantastic visual style. I think it's, like, it looks enough like Dark Souls 1, but also has, to my eye, more sort of visual polish. It just looks really, really good. The environments are so detailed and well realized and sort of artful. Everything just looks great, in my opinion. Hold on, sorry. Snot! Sorry. Really, really cool looking game. I think Dark Souls 3 its absolute strongest suit is the bosses. The bosses are so cool. They have so many of them have such cool stories behind them. They're interesting, they're varied, they've got fantastic music. Like I said, the soundtrack, I think Dark Souls 3 is my favorite of the Soulsborne Kiro Ring soundtracks. Just banger after banger. They've all got really cool looks to them, really interesting, varied, unique move sets. I love all the like weapons and the weapon arts in Dark Souls 3, all the wacky spells that you can get. I think the biggest thing that is often levied as a criticism to this game is that it's like too linear, right? And I sort of understand that, but I still think it's just different. It's certainly not the same exact kind of super interconnected loop around kind of world that Dark Souls 1 had. Yes, it would have been cool if they had done that in every FromSoft game ever, honestly, but they just didn't. And Dark Souls 3 kind of goes for a different thing, where I still think it has that same kind of feel to it, even though it doesn't literally do that. And I know that sounds like cope, and maybe it is, but it's like the way you go through the game is very strange. You kind of start out in like one of the last areas of the game, and you like go through a little bit of it, and then you branch off and go to this different part, and you go into like the main sort of breadth of the world. Then you do a little bit of linear stuff, and there's a couple like optional paths here and there, and then eventually you go back to that big castle area, the High Wall of Lothric. Then you do a little more in there, and then you go back out elsewhere, and then you come back, and it's like, I don't know, something about that. It's like, it's definitely, calling it linear feels weird. But it's certainly, I get what people are saying. It's like when you replay the game, it's not going to be like Dark Souls 1 where you can just have like a totally radically different playthrough. You know, there is some of that Metroidvania-y branching path kind of concepts, but it's definitely to a slightly lesser degree. I understand, but I still vibe with it, and frankly, it's like that aspect of Dark Souls 1 is really awesome. I love Dark Souls 1 for that, but I don't need it to be there personally in like full form. Yeah, fan service. Somebody said like people say Dark Souls 3 is full of fan service, which I don't think matters at all. LMAO. There's a tricky situation here where Dark Souls 1 is iconic, obviously. Dark Souls 1, I don't think, does it have like any callbacks to Demon's Souls? I kind of think Demon's Souls is just its own thing, but maybe I'll discover some connections when I play it. But then, it's supposed to be that in Dark Souls 2, one of the really cool things I think about the story of Dark Souls 2 is that it's been so many eons and eons and eons, just thousands and thousands of years, to the point where nobody remembers Gwyn's name, you know. There's almost no relics from Dark Souls 1 that lasted over into Dark Souls 2. But then in Dark Souls 3, they were kind of like, okay, so Dark Souls 3 is now eons and eons after Dark Souls 2, but now we're gonna bring back a bunch of stuff from Dark Souls 1. Which is kind of awkward. I get why some people thought, like, what the hell is this fan service bullshit? But it's not like they literally were just like, here's Solaire and shit. Like, they didn't do that. They had like a spiritual successor to Siegmeyer and a couple other things. I'm trying to recall. Like, there's the Nameless King, but I think the Nameless King is like fucking badass. Yeah, and they sort of write it off as saying that time, I mean, they say this throughout the entire series, that eras of time kind of like fade in and out of each other and like loop around in this weird, confusing Ouroboros. But yeah, Laddersmith Gilligan was in Dark Souls 3. I forgot about that. They put his corpse in there, which like there's some stuff where if you're really like thinking about it hard, it's kind of like, this doesn't make like a huge amount of sense necessarily. But I was not bothered by that stuff. I didn't think it stood out as being like a plot hole or whatever. Oh, it's a cinema sin, you know. Yeah, time is convoluted, as they say. But I do acknowledge that there's a little bit of awkwardness when it comes to... Someone in chat said it would work a lot better if Dark Souls 2 was at the end of the timeline of the trilogy. That's so true, but it's like, even then, you know, you have to consider, you know, Dark Souls 3's ending at the end of the DLC there, where it's like, that's like the definitive, like, end of all time, basically, or at least in, you know, the Dark Souls world. And there's, you know, references to Dark Souls 2 in Dark Souls 3. You know, there's some stuff that doesn't really make that work, but that's kind of a fun headcanon that would make me think this whole thing was like a little less awkward. But again, doesn't really bother me at all, honestly. And was there any other, like, stuff that was like fan servicey? Not really. I guess there's like, in the demon ruins, you see a bunch of corpses of demons from the first game, but I think it's perfectly reasonable to think, you know, yeah, those demons it's a species, and they just kept living. The corpse of the centipede demon is a little more like, huh, but whatever. Anyway, I don't mind that stuff. I don't think... Calling it fan service is just kind of weird. It's just kind of like continuity, like, there's just stuff... It's a series, you know, there's stuff from the previous games. But I do acknowledge the, like, slight awkwardness that Dark Souls 2 kind of throws into the ring there. And there's some stuff... I mean, you could, like, if you really want to analyze the timeline of these games, there's a ton of stuff that you could go, ding, you know? For instance, in Dark Souls 2... in the basement in Majula, you can find the shattered remains of the Lord Vessel from Dark Souls 1. Which, Audio Jungle, Audio Jungle, Audio Jungle. Sorry, copyrighted song. Let's go into Silent Hill 1. If you look at that, it's like, okay, so the Lord Vessel has shattered over time, but it's just, like, lightly buried in dirt. Like, wouldn't this... I feel like it would be totally unrecognizable, reduced to ash with, like, the amount of time it's been since the first game. But whatever, it's like, you can overthink that stuff till the cows come home, and that's just kind of... You're kind of just extracting the fun out of these games at that point. But, I don't know. It's a fine line to walk, because I kind of do love that aspect of the games where it's like, so much of each game is just brand new shit because it's been so long since the previous game. I don't know. Yeah, Dark Souls 2 has Ornstein in it. I don't even want to think about that one, man. That's another, you know, going back to criticisms of Dark Souls 2, there were several bosses in that game where it was just kind of like, hey, you guys liked it when we had a big dog enemy that limps when it gets to 10% health, right? Haha. Hey, you guys liked the big, sexy lady with the bug body, right? Haha. Hey, you guys liked literally just Ornstein copy-pasted, right? Haha. You know, and it's like, okay, make some new stuff, bro. But even, I honestly don't mind any of those bosses, necessarily, besides the Royal Rat Authority. And that's just because it's obnoxiously designed. There were a couple times where it kind of felt like Dark Souls 2 was like, you know, like licking up this fucking, like, scraps of Dark Souls 1 off the ground. But Dark Souls 3, very fun game, very cool game, very memorable characters, memorable lore, memorable bosses. I think it's just fun to play, it's satisfying, the animations are great, it doesn't have the issues with the animation and lighting that I've, you know, perceived Dark Souls 2 to have. It's Kino. I think it's fucking Kino, and the DLC is great. Tons of, like, memorable encounters, unique areas. I think it's a little heavy on the cathedrals, but, like, cathedrals are dope, man. I love me a good fantasy cathedral environment, so... Now, something to talk about in these games that I haven't really covered very much because I don't engage with it very much is multiplayer. I was just sort of reminded of that from thinking about Dark Souls 3's bosses and DLCs because of that one where it's Half-Light Spear of the Church is what it's called if you're not online, right? But like, there's a boss that's basically just an enemy invader with a boss health bar. And I kind of dislike the multiplayer in these games, but it's like I admire it from afar, but most of the times that I have to actually engage with PvP, I am left disgusted. Primarily because there is not functioning netcode. The fucking, like, because when you imagine, it's like in my head, I'm thinking about like, oh, PvP encounters, it's like you could have like a cool fight with somebody where they've got like some crazy weapon and you're sitting there and you're reacting to their attacks and like parrying shit, and there's like an interesting back and forth and like deciding when to heal and stuff is like interesting. But then you actually play a PvP fight and it's like, oh, well, the netcode's ass, so I can't react to anything. When I swing my sword and it passes cleanly through the opponent's body and does absolutely fucking nothing, and then they roll like half a second later, that's just like, oh, okay, well, I guess just blow me up, right? Just fucking kill me. It just feels terrible, and so many people who... Is it video paused, continue watching? Why is it doing this? Does that song really just abruptly do that? Okay. So many people in PvP that I've encountered have basically just developed a strategy of find a weapon that has one really spammable, safe attack and just spam it over and over again and just force you to approach, basically. Or, this is also extremely common, I hear people say, like, you know, they have enjoyable experience with PvP, but maybe that's because people go to, like, PvP hotspots, which I never really do. But in all my just random encounters with PvP, it's like, either they're gonna go in and they're gonna have some ridiculous, like, spammable attack from some weapon that you're, like, not familiar with, and it's just gonna be this game of, like, will I get lucky, basically, in terms of, like, going in and trying to deal with the fucking horrible netcode delay. Or they're just gonna sprint through like a million enemies. You're gonna hit them once, and then they're gonna run through the entire level that you're in, forcing you to chase them, and then you're gonna aggro like 50 enemies, and then they're just gonna watch as enemies kill you. Which I know it's like, oh, well, you could just ignore them, but it's like, getting invaded literally like halts your progress. It's like, oh, somebody else gets to come in and just like prevent you from having fun with this PvE part of the game for a while and just like fuck around with you, which is why a lot of times in PvP encounters I'll just kill myself. I'll just fucking like run off a cliff because I'm kind of just like, I just want to play the game and I don't want to do all this bullshit involving running around chasing you around to the Benny Hill theme while like 50 drakes are nipping at my heels. I'm just not interested. It's just not fun, and it's like in my mind, and I kind of enjoy, in a sense, the idea of invasion. Like, I think it's a cool concept, but it's in execution, I just found it to be annoying a lot of the time, and it's kind of like, it's a neat idea of like involuntary PvP, that just sort of happens to you every once in a while. Like, it spices it up for sure, and there's definitely like unique encounters that can happen because of it in memorable moments, but a lot of the time I just find that it doesn't work very well, at least in my experience, and it's probably a lot better if you seek out the specific like PvP hotspots, like the arenas that everybody just kind of agrees to meet at, to do like more traditional, like we're actually fucking fighting each other style PvP, rather than running past all the enemies, or just, I'm sure plenty of people, you know, just spam safe moves over and over again in PvP arenas, but maybe that's just a skill issue. But again, I really feel like it's like the idea of reacting to a move and parrying it with Soul's netcode is just like laughable. Like, I just can't believe anyone can do that, because you literally just need to predict when they're going to swing their weapon, which you can do, but and like I've done it before, I guess, but it's just like a totally different type of combat. It just feels like you're playing fucking rock, paper, scissors with someone. Oh, excuse me, I think Bella needs a ride. I might have to cut this short for now. Give me just one moment, guys. I am gonna have to go in just a second to pick up Bella from work, but I'll wrap up Dark Souls 3. You guys will get the Souls games next time. I'll do Bloodborne, Sekiro, Elden Ring. I'll do another one of these soon. I'll do another one soon. Yeah, wife guy. The netcode thing is cope. I mean, have you played these games? Like... Hold on, I'm texting. It's like, maybe I just have like a poor internet connection or something, or maybe I'm just like tremendously unlucky when it comes to finding people online. But it's like, there's just so many moments where it's just like, oh, I swung my sword at their idle animation and they're just sitting there and it obviously passed directly through their fucking body, and then like 1 full second later they roll away and I'm like, oh yeah, they dodged it. Yeah, got it. How am I supposed to, like, all the information that you have in a Souls game when you're fighting something is what they are visually doing. Like, I can't psychically sense, like, oh yeah, let me just like read somebody's mind across like 5 states so that I can understand like precisely when they're doing their things. It's like the timing of it is everything. It's everything. So I'm kind of in two minds about the PvP, but it's mostly ignorable, and it's not so overbearing on any of these games that it becomes a burden, I think. So Dark Souls 3, I think I would give this like a 9.5. It doesn't have, this is hard for me to put into words, but it's not quite as saucy as Dark Souls 1. Like, it just doesn't, I don't vibe with it to a 10, I vibe with it to a 9.5. I know that's such a ridiculous, loosey-goosey way of ranking these games, but it's just how I feel. There are certainly some qualities that Dark Souls 1 has that Dark Souls 3 doesn't have as much, but I still find it a deeply enjoyable experience. I've replayed this game like 3 or 4 times, and I've loved it every time. Great game. Great game. Anyway, should we... Let's stop for now. I am sort of running out of breath. Sorry I didn't get around to Bloodborne, Sekiro, Elden Ring. We'll just pick it up next time, right there, I think. I'll do another one of these streams. Man of my word, I'll do another one the next time I stream, which will probably be either later tonight or tomorrow at roughly the same time that I streamed today and yesterday. So look forward to that. And God willing, we'll be able to actually catch up on this list. I really want to do it. I really want to do it. So we didn't get through a huge quantity of games today, but I think we had some good talk. Anyway, thank you for watching, everybody. I gotta go pick up Bella from work, and I hope you all have a wonderful evening. I've still got a tab open on Grave Robber, Varg, and Sarah. Is anybody streaming right now? Northern Lion and Stir and Rev Scarecrow. Joel's playing Balatro? Hold on, is he playing like silly Balatro, or is it just like Balatro? He's playing silly Balatro. Hold on, let me turn off the... Oh, it's the card sauce mod, right. Somebody made like Balatro repainted that has like grapefruit cards in it. I kind of want to play that. I might check it out for a stream. Let's go raid Joel. Fuck it.
Okay. You know what? Let's start.
I feel like he's not usually online. when I'm online, or when I'm like ready to raid
Okay,
somebody. Varg
Skeletor,
Skeletor, right? Yeah.
I could do another straight.
Okay.
If I really wanted, but.
Anyway,
no,
thank you for watching. Sorry I didn't get around to all the Souls stuff, but I did do every game on this list that says Dark Souls in the title, at least, which is nice. And next time we'll talk about Bloodborne, Elden Ring, and Sekiro, and Freddy Fish 3, The Case of the Stolen Conch Shell. See you later.